Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Tuesday Tea Time. I am home again. I was in Portugal for the last couple of weeks, and I'm so glad to be home. So I'm at the hay hut right now. You can see Ari's in here having a bit of a snack. And I just let Atlas into the paddock. So he's in here with Ari for the first time in a couple of weeks. So today is the 100th tea time, which seems kind of amazing. I have no idea how that much time passed. I've been having a little talk with all of you for 100 weeks in a row. Hi, Zena. Good to see you at tea time. So yeah, when you're having fun with horses, as I am, it's kind of amazing how quickly time passes. So here I am, 100 weeks into this tradition of chatting with all of you for tea time. Now, I've missed a couple of Tuesdays. Sometimes it's been later in the week, but it's kind of amazing to me that I haven't missed a week. So I thought today we would talk a little bit about consistency. You see, everybody says consistency is important in horse training, but I think there's a paradox that goes with consistency. And I've been thinking about it a lot because it's a tricky challenge to decide whether you're going to work with consistency or work with variety. And both are important, but they can't really happen at the same time. You have to choose. Thank you, Zena. I'm so glad. Yeah, 100 times. Here we are. So I wanted to talk a little bit about consistency and what that means, but variety is appealing. So right here, we have Atlas, and he's going to come over and say hello to Ari, I think, in a moment. And this is not consistent. Usually they live in separate paddocks, and we may have a bit of a stallion fight on our hands. We're going to wait and see. Why do I do this? Why do I put them in the same paddock together? Quite frankly, because it's exciting. I feel like all of my senses are sharper. Everything is brighter. I can hear better. I can see better. I can even taste my tea better. There's a thing about novelty and social interaction that's very interesting. And so what you end up with is this inner battle between consistency, which brings a feeling of safety, and novelty, which brings a feeling of excitement and awareness. And all of us have this, I think, horses included. Now, I'm really proud of my boys. Atlas is hanging out yawning. Ari's gone back to eating in the hay hut. And we're all very relaxed. So, maybe we've done this enough times. It's less novel than I thought it was, and it's more consistent. But it's been 2 weeks. I'm going to go ahead and walk down here under the tree. It's been 2 weeks since these guys have been together. So we've got Atlas on that side. And we've got Ari, who says that he's terribly hungry and can't join the party right now. Ari, it's the 100th tea time. Maybe he'll join later. Atlas is here. So I'm going to switch my phone to the other hand. Consistency. It's really an interesting puzzle. So I believe that we need novelty of interaction to sharpen our senses. And when our senses are sharpened, when we are more aware of everything around us, this, if we do it right, actually leads to feeling safer. Because we're herd animals. We belong in groups. And so the interaction between individuals is the thing that sharpens our senses. And when our senses are sharper, then we start to feel safer. And then as we start to feel safer, our senses will naturally start to dull. And it's kind of that feeling when you're falling asleep. Nothing's very sharp. Everything's very hazy. And there's nothing wrong with that, except at a certain point, all of us will crave interaction again. And that craving for interaction, I think, is the lack of safety we feel from being alone. So I'm going to go ahead and just sit down here with Atlas. I think that we're pretty settled right now. Hi, Atlas. He's going to nap. It's a little bit hot in the middle of the day. Ari might join us in a minute. So Teza says, my horses are each in their own herd now, and they're so happy. It does increase the difficulty in working in the pasture, but it's okay. Yeah, you know, the thing about being consistent is sometimes it's inconvenient also. It really is the very best way to train horses, is to be consistent, to do things very similarly over and over again, because we have two things that drive our behavior. Either habits, the fact that we always do it that way, or fear. Fear of something. Fear is going to be the other motivator. And okay, so people are going to argue with me on that one. What about curiosity and engagement and interest and all those things? Those are the good side of fear. You know, those are what you feel so that you don't have to feel fear. And I feel like that is where the key to freedom-based training exists, is that we are trying to engage interest and curiosity and all of those good sides of the emotion so that we don't have to go to the place where fear motivates. But the other side of that is consistency. So if I can consistently back my horse up in the same way so that it evokes a good feeling, they learn to really associate that backup cue with a good feeling. And it's the consistency of that that will lead us to ease in every other situation. And what I feel most people do is most people will throw in novelty before the horse is ready, too much too soon. So if the horse fights against you or runs away from you, it is always because it was too much too soon. And, you know, we just want to have them appreciate the novelty as much as we do, but they don't always. And so, you know, here where I've put Ari and Atlas back in the same paddock, Ari's ignoring us, but I've put them back in the same paddock for the first time in 2 weeks. This is a little piece of novelty for me. Made me feel very alive. Wasn't very consistent. It's the first time we've done it in 2 weeks, but we've done enough over the years that we're consistent, that built up to this, that clearly not a problem. I wasn't sure, but I really feel like as human beings, as horse trainers, we throw in novelty far too soon. And we do this because our senses get dull. Okay, we feel like we're not very sharp. We're not thinking very clearly. We're not very interested, curious, engaged, all of those things. And so what we do is we create a novel situation that oftentimes scares the horses a little bit. And that fear will motivate them to interact with us. And if we can get through it safely, we might learn something good from it. But it's really important that we realize that it's not a healthy cycle. If we can be a little more consistent and work with a little less variety, we end up with horses that feel safer. So I drew up a little bit of a chart here when I was thinking about this to talk to you guys. So I'm going to turn my camera around and show you what I've got here, if I can find the button. So this little chart that I drew up I think this is basically how things go. Horse starts with feeling safe, and their senses start to dull. And when their senses start to dull, they're not as clear. They're not thinking as clearly. And that will make them feel unsafe. And after they feel unsafe, they will want interaction. Okay, that's how they're going to sharpen their senses again. And then that interaction will lead to sharper senses, awareness, which hopefully leads to safety. Now, as really good horse trainers, we want to skip the middle part of feeling unsafe. Okay, and this is where consistency comes in. okay? If the horse feels safe and their senses start to dull, okay, they're not listening to things, they're not thinking, they're not seeing things, we want to have some sort of interaction with them that sharpens their senses without making them feel unsafe. And that sharper awareness of the world will then lead to feeling safe. When we have trainers that aren't very good at what they do, they tend to dance around in the middle a lot, okay? The horse's dull senses are dull, they feel kind of unsafe, they have an interaction, their senses get sharper, but then they have another interaction and then they feel unsafe, and then it just sort of goes back and forth in the middle a whole lot. And with freedom-based training, we want to start becoming more aware of that. So we keep it on the edges, feeling safe. Maybe the senses dull a little bit when they're sleepy or tired or relaxed or eating. And then we have an interaction that sharpens those senses, brings up their awareness so they feel safe again. And we hopefully keep the cycle going with interest and curiosity and all those good things, and less of the feeling unsafe in the middle. Now, turn my camera around again. Feeling unsafe is a motivator, okay? So I'm feeling very unsafe about this post here that I didn't put a cap on. Atlas, are you going to be safe with that post? I'll have to remember to bring another cap out here, obviously. So you can see that Atlas is itching his head on that post behind me. This is one of those things that horses can get hurt on. So I'm feeling a little bit unsafe. I want to go interact with him to see if we can sharpen our senses, be aware, fix that problem, all of those things. I'm going to choose to sit this one out because I think Atlas is pretty smart. I don't think he's going to hurt himself on that post in the few minutes we're talking. We'll see. But you can see right there, there's an obvious piece of when I feel unsafe, it's going to drive me to interact. And what I find happens a lot with freedom-based training is people really enjoy it at first. It's really fun to sort of see the details and everything else. And then the consistency honestly gets boring for a lot of people. And fair enough. Okay, it's very quiet, consistent work. When life gets a little bit boring, it is hard to motivate ourselves to go out and do the work and be consistent. And very, very many of us need a little bit of feeling of unsafe to motivate us to show up and interact. And big sigh, Atlas. I just want to shed a little light on that so that this maybe becomes a choice. Like today, I put Atlas and Ari together for tea time today. Wasn't sure how it was going to go. I made a choice to feel unsafe. I thought it'd be exciting for our 100th tea time. But I'm conscious about it. I'm conscious that I made that choice. I'm conscious that I feel a little unsafe. Maybe they do too. And that's going to sharpen all of our senses. Okay, Ari's going to come out here. We're going to see what he has to say about Atlas sitting so close. I may have to get up and intervene. We're going to see. What do you think, Ari? Are we okay? Yeah, clearly he feels a lot more consistent about this situation than I do. So Catherine, yes, I'm so sorry I did not make it to the UK. COVID rules got in the way. For any of you guys watching, I have scheduled an August clinic. Information is going up on my website shortly with all of the details. You can also email me directly if you want to get the organizer's name. I'll go ahead and post all of that on the website, and I'll post it in the comments here of the tea time as well. But yes, assuming by the end of August the rules have cleared up a little bit and I can get through to your country, I will be in the UK for a 2-day clinic. I believe it's the last weekend of August. So I'll post all the details about that on the website. So here we are, 100th tea time. Went really fast for me because I have a lot of fun with this. I chose to acknowledge this paradox of consistency, which is really, I believe, that it is hard to show up every day and to be motivated to interact if there's no lack of safety. To be fully interactive and curious and interested and engaged, all of those things are harder to do spontaneously if there's no fear motivating them. And when we acknowledge that and make the effort anyway, I think that's what makes us really better trainers, better friends, better partners. To show up with consistency and say, there's nothing I'm afraid of. I'm not lonely. I'm not scared. I'm not lacking anything, but I'm fully interested and curious and engaged in this relationship. When we can get that kind of consistency where we want to show up and we want to interact without any fear motivating it, we can really help our horses much better. And it's hard to do because honestly, the more consistent you get, the more your senses will tend to dull, the more it will feel a little bit boring, the harder it will be to dig up that interest and curiosity. And I'm human. I deal with it just like all of you guys do. And case in point, here I am with my 2 stallions in the same paddock for the first time in 2 weeks. I was kind of hoping for a little bit of drama for tea time, I'll be totally honest. And they're offering me no drama whatsoever. Ari has not taken his head out of the hay, and Atlas is just hanging out, enjoying having a tail to swish in his face. So there you go. I was looking for excitement. They were looking for consistency. I think they made the better choice. Works for me. So I think that's all today for tea time. I will be here again next week, even though we've reached 100. Oh, are we gonna have excitement? What do you think? Maybe. Maybe. I stood up, so Ari may have changed his mind. Oh, okay. So here, we're going to go ahead and turn the camera around here. And this is what they do when they get territorial. Is, as you see, I have not cleaned up all the manure piles from my trip away. And they have a little bit of an argument over the manure pile. It's kind of interesting. How much do I let them talk before there's a fight? And one of the things I watch is Atlas's front legs. So as long as Atlas's front legs are staying not too far behind him, we're probably okay. And you know, some of this is interaction that's very normal for stallions. We just want to make sure that it doesn't escalate to a point where they're going to hurt each other. And Atlas's choice to yield away there, while Ari poops on the manure pile. And Atlas is going to go down in the pasture. That was a pretty good choice, okay? He chose to yield instead of fight, maybe even go into a bit of flight. But he chose to disengage before there was a fight, which actually I was pleased. I didn't have to interact with them at all. I didn't have to stop it. I could let them have a conversation and then figure out what they wanted to do with it. Now, Atlas just had a big snort down there into the trees. I think those interactions do make them feel more alive and aware. And there's a little bit of fear involved. They are a little bit afraid of each other. That's why they push on each other so much. We'll go ahead and switch the camera here. We've got Ari behind me. Where are you, Ari? There you are, back in the hay hut. So clearly that interaction was short-lived. Ari's going to go back to eating. He has no more unusual food in there. It's all the normal food that's been there for 2 weeks, but he's still happy with the bottom of the hay hut. I have 3 of these, so they can eat at any one of them all the time. There's always hay available, but sometimes they use them to disengage. So, as I was saying before we had the exciting stallion interaction, when they feel really safe, it's a good feeling. It's a good feeling to feel safe. But then everything gets a little dull. You do some eating, you do some sleeping, you do some relaxing, and then at some point you're going to want something to sharpen your senses. And it's that lack that can often turn into fear of loneliness, or fear of lack of resources, or fear of safety. For horses, that's a big one. And then they interact with each other and they have a motivation. As a trainer, I want to see if I can skip past that as often as possible. And so, I spend a lot of time with these guys. They have an interesting relationship because they're both stallions. They're both very different. They have hurt each other very badly in the past. And it's hard for them to figure out how to interact without really scaring each other. So, yeah, I think you're right, Teza. Sometimes kids antagonize each other. They get bored and they need something, they need some interaction, and they don't know how to do it well. And I think that's often the case with unsocialized stallions. So Ari's pretty well socialized, Atlas is not. So Atlas tends to underreact and then overreact. And that's why I make sure that I'm with them so that nobody gets hurt. Ari is a lot more socialized. So he's pretty comfortable being bored, going to eat some hay, having a nap. He's a little bit safer of the two. But I hope that gives you some food for thought. Hello, Andrea. I was just telling everybody that I'm going to be in the UK in the end of August, so I hope to see you then too. Last weekend of August, if all the COVID rules allow me to get in the country this time. I'll post all the details on my website and let everybody know how to get involved if you'd like to. So, tea time is rattled on long enough, even for the 100th episode. Where's Atlas? There he is. There's my blonde giant. All right, I'm going to say goodbye for today. I'll be back next Tuesday, and we will head for 200. See if we can do that. All right, thank you, Andrea. Oh, Rebecca has one more comment. Hey, Elsa, would you say that the assertive leadership practice in FBT serves as a mean for stimulation? Sorry. Let's say this again. Would you say that the assertive leadership practice in freedom-based training serves as a mean for stimulation and interaction, or is the intention of this to sit with a normal space, safe space, rather than eliciting stimulation? Okay, so a little bit of a complicated question for my brain today. I think I'm still in travel mode, but I will answer it. I think both are important, Rebecca. So when we assertively ask for the horses to move left, right, forward, backwards, we're hoping for that easy yes answer, which is what classifies it as assertive leadership. That easy yes answer means that it is a form of interaction that is without fear. So hopefully it sharpens the senses, but it does so in a way where we're not stimulating any fear. We're offering it because we're interested and curious and engaged, the good side of fear. Then there's the other side of it, which is if we sit with a horse whose senses have dulled, and they might start to feel unsafe because they're not thinking. There is a time and a place where we just sit with that and we see if maybe they could get interested and curious and engaged instead of overreacting in a way that they might if they were afraid. So that dulling of the senses will either stimulate some sort of interest or curiosity and engagement, or it will stimulate an overreaction. If it's going to be an overreaction, it's really good if we step in earlier and help if we can. If we think it might not be an overreaction, if we think the horse might be able to come out of that dull, sleepy state in a really graceful way, we might just sit with it and see if they can evolve out of it in a really graceful way. So to answer your question, Rebecca, it's both. Just depends on when and how, which is that magic feel and timing piece. So thank you for the question. Have a wonderful day, you guys, and I will be back next week.